Welcome to the Blackburn End Podcast. The start of season has not been kind to us Rovers fans. On this podcast, we try to be balanced with our thoughts and opinions, and we've tried to be positive where we can, but after this week, it's becoming increasingly difficult. The fan base seems as toxic as it's ever been, with fans arguing on social media, and that wasn't helped with an absolute gut punch on Saturday. But let's get into it. So Rovers are one and done in the League Cup with a disappointing 2-1 loss against Bradford. A goalkeeping error isn't rare at Ewood anymore, but to happen to such a young lad on his debut after signing a new deal was a real shame. Birmingham City then arrive at Ewood in full force and return to the Midlands with all 3 points after a horrific 10-minute injury time. Lewis Travis reportedly refuses to play as he tries to force his move to Derby, but it's now Captain Campwell who takes on the skipper duties. And finally, there are no new signings as our exciting summer of recruitment seems to be coming to a close. But Mark, how is your tan coming along?
Shade of pink is currently coming along nicely. It will be extremely pink by the time we get back, pal. Yeah.
It's looking very nice there. Quite. How hot is it currently?
38 degrees. That's hot.
It's not good for a man of your complexion, is it?
If you see me slowly wilting as the course of this goes on, that will be why. Yes.
Well, to be fair, between us, I don't think either of us are built for the sunny weather, are we?
Well, you know, I don't know. My freckles join up sometimes. It looks like I'm tanned from a distance.
Well, let's return to Blackburn just for this podcast for you. So we're going to go in chronological order. Obviously, there was 2 games this week. The first one being Bradford at home in the EFL Cup. I'll go straight into the match reaction audio that we both did, and then we'll break down the game.
I'll be honest, mate. I missed the start of the game, and thank God I did. I was on the podcast for the 2 Blues fan groups, and they made some comments at the end of the recording about how we were losing, and I thought, we can't be losing like this quick. And I looked, and my heart dropped a little bit, and especially when I saw that there was a goalkeeper error in there, because you just don't want that for a young lad. I've looked at it a few times. I think we need to break it down a little bit. But it seemed to me like he was just a little bit he was either tentative or overconfident that the ball was coming towards him and didn't realise the pace of the game. But anyway, we'll break that one down. But yeah, we should be beating that team. We put out a relatively strong squad there, and there's no excuses. I just hope that we can do something positive after this weekend.
That team should have been good enough, but yet again, not enough chances, Mike. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing what happened to Michalski there. I think the way he recovered showed me mentally he's a big enough and ugly enough boy to get over it, and he'll got to learn harsh lessons. Montgomery nearly had to learn them as well a couple of times, but created very little. Gay poor. I thought Tavares looked all right. Deneve, good goal, but other than that, similar again. Doesn't look good enough in terms of being a left winger. Cogbo came on, lots of running, very little end product. I'm starting to get a little bit worried, Mike. I bet your arse is twitching for Saturday.
Well, it's really hard to look back and think about how I was feeling, but yeah, it did start to twitch. That's when I started getting questions off like my mates and family members that are all Blues fans saying, how do you feel after this game? They knew I'd gone on the podcast. They'd listened to what I'd said on those podcasts. And I was saying at the time, and this was before the Bradford game, that, you know, I'm a little bit concerned. I can see glimpses that there's something there for us. But, you know, we're playing Bradford tonight. We've got a couple of young lads playing. It should be okay. And then we're going to throw it away in the first few minutes. I mean, the starting lineup itself, like you say, Michalski was in goal. Pickering left back, Montgomery right back, Wharton and Miller at centre back, Tronstad Tavares in the middle with Deneve. Is it Deneve or Deneva? I'm hearing different. I say Deneve.
Apparently, it's actually Deneve. Is the pronunciation over in French Belgique pronunciation? Yes, Deneve.
All right, we'll try and use Deneve then, and then Tijon, Henriksen, and Gay up front. that is a pretty strong starting lineup with just a couple of dotted youth players, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think that probably showed to some extent in the second half. It showed that people were lacking in match fitness, but it showed that even at that level, I mean, Bradford were in League Two last year, weren't they? You can't give silly mistakes away. It's it costs you. But I was obviously very, very low after that game. But I think when you look at what I'd said about Michalski, I don't think it was the end of the world, because they packed that away end, didn't they, the bottom tier, and he spent the whole game under pressure. They were jeering his every touch, and I think you've got to try and take some positives from it. I know it's very, very difficult, and the ones I took was he really stood up to that. We've seen goalkeepers before make one error and absolutely crumble. We've spoken before, it's very difficult to talk about people's mental state. You obviously don't know, you can't see inside people's heads, but you can only go off what you see. And I go back to Ainsley Pears in the cup game at Wigan, made one error and absolutely crumbled, and he spiralled into making more and more. I thought Michalski recovered really, really well. So as much as it was maybe an overconfidence, maybe he was, not quite ready or whatever it was, I looked at how he recovered from it, and I thought he recovered really, really well. So that pleased me. But I was very, very concerned after that game, because this is not our backup team, but the backups were on show, and they didn't look good enough, did they? I don't think anybody really made me think, oh, he should play on Saturday to start with anyway.
No, and you're right with Michalski. He did react well. Just to quickly break down what happened, the ball was played back to him. The striker was, pressing quite quick, and I don't know why, but he just stopped. He was waiting for the ball to come to him. I don't know whether he felt like he had more time, and he was trying to just take a little touch around him and trying to time it right for the striker to be in his face, so then he could take that little touch. But like you say, he reacted well. It's a lesson learned. He knows now that he either needs to come and meet it and just deal with it and be more assertive, or he just needs to come and get rid. Whichever way he's going to play it, he knows that there was a mistake there. And however he made it in his head, like we could have said in his head, well, that's not my fault. The back pass wasn't right. We know it wasn't, but whatever he did mentally, it worked, and he did seem to have that little bit more of a solid game after. Tijon was quite quiet. Whether that's his natural position, I don't know. But generally, you're looking around the team, and we should have taken control. But it just goes to show that we haven't got the talent up front to gift 2 goals, even to, with all due respect, a Bradford, and come back. Now, we did, and we managed a game of it because of Denev getting that goal, and it then created a better second half. But I just felt like it was a game that was just going to peter out. There wasn't many fans there, cheering the team on, which is fine. It's a midweek cup game, and tickets are expensive, but you want the team to really probably, show more fight than what they did. But I don't think their keeper actually had to pull out many saves, and the ones he made, I don't think were that difficult. It was a very lackluster game come the end of it.
Yeah, I think my overriding memory of it is Matt Targay running through on goal, 1-on-1. Doesn't score. Didn't fill him with confidence when he was through on goal. Doesn't score. And that for me told me right at that moment in time. And when we've talked about the way he plays football and the way it's a plan B, absolutely fine. I'm not saying we should get rid of him, but that told me we need a striker and we need one quick.
I would have liked to have seen Tijon a little bit further up. I mean, he came off on the 63rd minute. And I don't know. I felt like the game was just not going to go our way. The ground had that atmosphere where it felt quite inevitable that we was going to lose. And I think after the week of leading up to it, where obviously the fan base wasn't exactly in the best frame of mind, the West Brom game was very mixed. I mean, we said that we saw some positives in that game, but obviously you still go and lose. We needed a stronger start to get the fan base on side, and it wasn't there. And then when you've got the likes of Gay running through and just petering out, sometimes you hear laughs in the stadium
Mm.
when that happened, and it got to a point where I felt like it wasn't necessarily frustration. It's like the fans just felt like it was quite comical by the end.
Yeah, it was almost pre-season, wasn't it? You're looking at Tavares and getting minutes. You're looking at Cantwell getting some minutes. Obviously, he's had that knock. You're looking at trying Miller at centre half. Can he cover there? Because do we need to go and get another centre half? I was looking at things like that rather than a result, and it shouldn't be like that. I know it's the early round to the cup, and all right, we're not going to win the Carabao Cup, but I didn't see any desire to win it either, if I'm being perfectly honest.
No, and the fan reaction at the end, it was, like we say, the inevitable fan reaction. There were some people trying to say that, some players look good and there's some positives there, but the general consensus was that we just looked very poor. People comparing us to the Owen Coyle days. People calling out Montgomery and Tijon, saying that they need to be loaned out and they're not ready for the first team. It seemed to be that a lot of the fans were just looking at the team and just being like, do you know what? I'm not looking forward to Saturday. We've had two performances that weren't quite where we wanted. And as much as we're trying to pick peanuts out of poo and, find some players that we can be positive about, it was very difficult, especially when you put this kind of strong side out. And these players are the ones that you're going to be relying on to play some very good teams. And they can't even come and do it against Bradford at home. There seemed to be no real positive for me to look at with the majority of players. Tavares looked a little bit off it at times. Cantwell came on and seemed to have a little bit of energy, but generally I was looking at it and I was struggling to find a player that really stood out, and probably Neva and Miller were the two that I was the most positive about. I think you know what you're going to get from Miller, and like I said, I'm trying to talk about this isolated with the two games. I think you know what you're going to get from Miller with his passion and his strengths. And as much as Deneva's been called out a couple of times, there's a player in there. His positioning, his runs, they do seem kind of quite intelligent.
Yeah, I think he's more akin to a Hedges though, isn't he? He's not somebody who's going to take somebody on. I mean, he's been a left back, a left wing back. So we weren't quite sure where he was actually going to play. It looks like he is going to be on that left or right wing for us. I just think you're lacking a lot of creativity with him and Hedges. I think he's going to work really hard for you. He's going to do a job for the team, but he's not somebody who's going to unlock defences, and that's what we're severely lacking. I thought if we're going to look at any positives, I kind of liked Ismaël's response after the game. In a typical Val style, he was very honest, and he said exactly what I thought. We've seen youngsters now tested in an environment that is competitive, and he kind of said, I've seen enough, and we need to do more. But he's still talking about only one signing. Now, is that him or is that upstairs? That's the problem. But he's I'm just a bit worried, if I'm being honest. I don't think we've got the depth at all.
No, that's the worry. That is the worry. When you're looking at this team, and these are the ones we're going to have to rely on, they're not there. They're not going to be the ones that we can rely on when we come to play some better opposition and we get some injuries. But it's early in the season, and that was only our second game. We did have a third game of the season. It was one that meant quite a bit to me. Obviously, the fan reaction between the Bradford game and the Blues game was quite negative. I think a few people thought that we was just going to roll over, get our belly tickled, and that was going to be it. Like I said, I went on a couple of podcasts for Blues. I was talking to their fans. They were very confident about beating us. It was all this. I mean, to be fair, there was a lot of predictions of Blues winning 2-1, but there was a couple of 3-1s and 3-0s in there. And the general feeling in the area I live in was Blues are on their way up and that they're an extremely strong side. So there was some tentative fans from Rovers End. I think the majority were saying that if we could take a draw right now with what we've seen, that would be great. But it didn't go our way. And we have a fan reaction audio from us Now, just to warn you, this one is 5 minutes long. And I think the reason they're 5 minutes long is, like we say, we do this. It's an emotional reaction to after. I'd sent one to you, and I think you was going to start phoning some people to come and help me because I was mentally drained. It was 30 seconds of me moaning, and I thought, no, I can't leave it at that. We need to have a discussion. It needs to be a proper one. So I did mine again, but let's just listen to this nice 5-minute reaction.
So I'll be honest, I've done a couple of voice notes. The first one I did was pretty flat and emotional that I sent to you, Mark. This one I've stopped and started the recording quite a few times because I can't really articulate how I'm feeling. I'll be honest, I've had a hell of a lot of messages already from Blue Noses. So as soon as that second goal went in, my phone just went mad. So I did try to record again and it kept stopping because of the notifications coming through. But anyway, that's Blue Noses for you. So the match, I felt like we were trying to stop them with a few niggly little fouls here or there, leaving a little bit. Not too bad, just enough to really get them off their flow, and it was working. The first half, it went our way tactically by doing that. We did seem to give them far too much of the ball, but they weren't doing anything with it because of how we were playing. So I think tactically that worked. Second half, thought we started quite strong. I'd say that I started to feel a little bit more positive about how we were doing things. I thought we were starting to figure out a way of getting through, and we was getting chances, and it was a lovely goal by Cantwell. I was absolutely beside myself with it. I just lovely goal. But I really felt like Blues just weren't really offering anything past that, and then we're just going to throw it away. The penalty, I don't know whether it's a dive or not. I like to be really level-headed on these things and really give a balanced view. I actually think it probably was a penalty, as soft as it was. The lad knew what he was doing and we were just silly. That's my initial thoughts without looking back too much. And then I don't know who was at fault for the second one, but you can't be allowing that. I mean, I felt like we'd obviously tried to go and win it ourselves. But grand scheme of things, to lose 2-1, extremely flat about it, extremely negative. But that's probably just because of the area I live in and the people I know and the amount of messages I've already had. I think my head is telling me that there are still positives there. There are still glimpses that we can look at and be positive about. I thought that some individual players showed some more qualities that we will break down in the pod. But it's just typical Rovers again to throw this away. Grand scheme of things, I think there's positives. Right now, I feel extremely negative, and I can't wait to break this down in the pod, mate, because we should have got at least a point out of that game.
I was all set to send you a voice note then saying, I told you, Mike, calm down. Don't worry. The crap. Last week, we have a penalty that was more of a penalty than that. Ethan Laird's come on the pitch, housed his way through all the game, thrown cardboard to the floor a couple of times, dug him in the ribs. Then he's gone through Alibiosu and knocked him onto a stretcher, and then he slits his hint of a leg, throws himself on the floor. We've lost by 1 goal again, Mike, but I feel much better after this one. I thought Alibiosu looked a good player. I mean, he played right back today, not far forward, and people were questioning whether he can do that. I thought he looked a good defender. He looked good going forward. I thought that Tavares and Tronstead were quiet, but other than that, I think Cogball just ripped into shreds, didn't he? Quality. Owashi, all right, no real goal threat, but really offered us something up front, real focal point, keeping hold of the ball, looking after it, laying people off. And Cantwell took him a little bit to get into the game, but that was just unbelievable quality. That's what he can do. I feel really sorry for us today. I think that's one of them that you looked against you, it's against you, isn't it? But I saw more green shoots of recovery. First 25 minutes, I was a bit worried. I thought we looked full of endeavour, full of resilience, full of athleticism, exactly like what we'd said. But we allowed them the ball, but I worried about our quality. But I thought as the game went on, they spent absolute bucket loads, and I didn't think they had much more quality. They didn't win that because they had more quality than us. They won it because they got a penalty decision that could have gone either way, and then they have counter-attacked on us when we went for the win, didn't we? And we probably overcommitted, and we got caught and paid the ultimate price for it. But I'm much more positive after seeing that one. Just feel sorry for you, mate, because they'll be rubbing it in your face, and they don't deserve it. And they need to spend another bucket load if they think they're going up.
I think we've covered it there. So let's talk about Hull City game. No, joking. Obviously joking. I think I counted 101 different messages that I had. I ended up turning my phone off because it was constant. I went. The kids went to a sleepover on Saturday night, and I was meant to be going out for a meal with the missus. You know, a date night. It was all going to be nice, and she was there getting changed, and the game's finishing. And I was thinking, oh, this is going to be awesome. Looking forward to tonight. And then absolute gut punch. And all my mates, all my family just knew how I'd be feeling, and my phone did not stop. I'll be honest, there was quite a lot of abusive messages in there, but that's football, innit? You know, you're going to get abuse. I had quite a few people say, stick that in your podcast. Well, Here we are. We're going to stick it in the podcast then. So let's talk about it. Let's go in the chronological order as we try to. So the starting lineup was, for me, I kind of expected it. It seems to be where Ismaël wants to be going with the team. Tavares getting that start, in the league. When you saw this starting lineup, what was your gut feeling with how we were going to play?
I think before the game, I know I've had a bit of a wind up, but I actually thought going after the Bradford game, I could see us losing 2-3-1, potentially not even scoring. And that was all about us, not about the opposition. Saw the starting lineup, and I thought I was disappointed there was no Travis. I know obviously all the speculation, but I think knowing the character that Lewis Travis is, if he feels that people have had a pop at him, I think we would have seen the best Lewis Travis had he played on Saturday. So I was hoping that might be the case. But then he's obviously not on the bench, and you think, right, what's going on there? I was worried about the depth, and I'll go on to that later, and I think that ultimately is what cost us. But I was interested to see Cogbo on the right, as it turned out, once they started lining up. I didn't know that was the case when I saw the lineup initially, because Hedges has been playing on that right-hand side. But it was interesting when that happened. But I think my overriding feeling was, probably the right team, but kind of the only team we could put out at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at that, and when Cogbo was on that side, and I said it right that time, can we just note I did say it right that time. I was quite excited because he was a player that I did call out across the week when talking to Blues fans, that if he clicks, I think he was going to be a difficult one to deal with. I mean, he loves to do that little stutter step as he's running, but generally when he's in full flow, he was difficult. And I think he did end up getting someone booked as well. So I was quite excited about that. Hedges, I'm always going to be tentative with until he starts showing me a consistent body of work. But Cantwell getting that captain's armband, that was going to be the interesting one. Is that going to be a burden, or is it going to be something that lifts him? And it turns out it lifted him. What was interesting was after the game, I got quite a lot of messages about how we played, and it was funny because obviously there's a lot of people that don't have me on my personal on socials, but my friends that have me personal on socials, I did have a few messages saying, I don't know why everyone's having a go at you, because you were really positive about Blues. And what we, how, it was, well, that's the thing. But I've been positive about Blues, and I've actually been quite negative. And across the week, when talking to a lot of people from a personal level, I was saying, I'm really concerned. I finished coaching on the Saturday, and I had loads of under 11 players, all blue noses with their dads, going up to the game, and they're saying, what do you think it's going to be? And I said, I'll be honest right now, if you beat us 3-0, I would not be shocked by it. No. If we go and sneak a 1-0, I wouldn't be shocked by it. I said we're in that part of the season where anything can just happen. You don't know what's going to click, what's not going to click. But a lot of comments I had after the game were, you were bully boys, time wasters, you deserved it, it was embarrassing. And I just felt like, especially this first half, yes, we gave away a lot of niggly little fouls. And it was probably by design. But it was, to me, it seemed like we was just trying to get Blues off their game. And ultimately it worked. And as much as I can't stand this kind of football, it's needs must. At the end of the day, the point of football is to win the game at the end. And the best way that if we try to go toe-to-toe with them and just play football, it's a risk. With how we've played, it's a risk. So you do need to try and, leave a boot here or there, just the niggly ones, just a little trip up, little pullback, things like that. But then I felt like, whilst we were doing niggly things, they were actually getting away with quite a lot. I felt like Clara was getting away with quite a lot at the back. He's a very old school defender, but he was throwing people around. I think Newman as well, and Ohashi was having quite a lot of a battle. But that first half, I came away from it thinking we've done what we needed to do to slow them down, and they've done what they needed to do to stop us getting any kind of counters. Toth made a couple of good saves. I mean, we had a great chance. Adebiosu running through. They ended up calling it for a foul, and I don't think it was. But I was concerned with that his decision wasn't to cut it back to the two players in the middle of the box that had no one around them, was to take a shot. But I felt like both teams in that first half were just kind of doing what needed to be done to stop the other team.
Yeah, I thought when I saw the way we were setting up, I felt like we were almost seeing what they had. And we had put ourselves... It was warm. We know we've not got much depth. I think all the factors came into play. And I think we'd set up to say, right, we cannot press them 100% all game. That's just not going to work. So we... complete opposite to West Brom, we really compacted ourselves. From Hyam to Ohashi, there was no space. We did not press them until they came into our half, and then we let the trigger press be activated. And I thought I was all right with it. I really was. And I thought we saw out 25 minutes of, let's just see what they've got. They've got a big following. Let's see, what the game's going to be like. And I think as the half wore on, we became the better team. I think for the first 25 minutes, I did think they had the more quality on the ball. But as the half wore on, I don't think we looked like we were going to rip them to shreds. But I did think, do you know what, we're really growing into this game. And actually, they showed me nothing that I was frightened of. They look pretty average as well. So we know what we are. We know we're hardworking. We know we're lacking in quality. We know we're lacking in depth. And I understood why we did what we did, but I didn't think we were bully boys by any stretch. It's not going back to the Mark Hughes mock win it is. And I thought exactly what you said. There was plenty of their players doing it, and I think the ref just let things go. We were doing some tactical fouls. If Damari Gray was picking up a head of steam, we'd bring him down. Well, good. I want us to do that. We're not clever enough at doing that normally. But yeah, I thought at half time I was far more comfortable at half time than I was before the game anyway.
It's really interesting when you look at the whoscored.com momentum chart, and I use this quite a lot because I think it's quite interesting to see how these are. And it was all just down the middle with the odd Blues moments for the first half. So it just seemed like it was all played in the middle of the park. The pitch was quite dry, so the ball wasn't moving. Whenever the ball seemed to break, it was breaking to Cantwell. I'm faster than Cantwell, so it seemed that the counters would then slow. But it seemed very, very mediocre. I felt like we was in control. Blues had their moments, and I thought Toth played well. He made some good saves. But the counter-attack was there because they weren't the fastest at times. We weren't the fastest at times. And the game was really waiting to break open. And obviously, second half, it really does. I mean, we had a couple of opportunities that people have got excited about, the Alibiosu one and Ribeiro hitting the bar, but ultimately they were offsides and fouls, so it didn't really count. But it just showed that there was something there that we could really build on. And then second half starts, and we came out of them and absolute League Two level build up to the goal. But what a Premier League level finish from Cantwell.
Yeah, I don't think we do that enough either. I don't think we keep the ball alive enough. It was very not long ball sense, but in terms of when you used to watch Sam Allardyce's teams, he used to say, keep the ball alive, just keep it alive. And if you watch Hashi, Cogbo, they're never going to win that header. But I think there's twice in that one section where Cogbo just jumps and does enough that means the defender can't get a clearance. And if you want it to fall to anybody, you want it to fall to Cantwell, don't you? The moment it did that, you could see the gap. I think it was Cogbo that managed to jump out of the way of it. But it was unbelievable quality, that, and that's what he's got. And I thought as the game wore on in the first half, he was becoming more influential. I still got very, very big issues about our final third play, but I think he was getting on the ball more. He was getting on the ball more in areas I wanted him to. And that goal, I thought that could just be what we needed. I thought exactly like you. Up to that point, I thought as much as they had the ball, we were kind of controlling where they had the ball and what they were doing with it, and we just blocked that middle area. So I was very comfortable. And then when he scored that, I thought, I'm going to have to see something different from them, because I think we've got this game under control. And I felt that's how it played out for large periods. I'd say they had the booking really early on, late on in this first half for their right back. At that point, I thought, switch Cogbo, get him running at him, because he was frightening them to death, wasn't he? But then the game wears on. And as the game wears on, I'm looking at our bench and thinking, right, well, I'm now looking at Alibiosu obviously gets... I mean, Ethan Laird came on the pitch, threw Cogbo on the floor before the ball was even in play, then knees him right in the back and wins him. Then he does that to Alibiosu, and if you look at it, it's pretty disgraceful. Whether he's significantly hurt him or not, it's caused him to go off the pitch. He knows what he's doing, so they can talk about us being bully boys. He's targeted somebody there and hurt them and knocked them out of the game. But I'm looking at Tavares and thinking, the game's passed you by a bit. You're now looking tired. And we'll come on to that later on. And who we're going to bring on? I thought Cogbo, we have nobody. I mean, all right, not many teams have people with pace of Cogbo, but we've got nobody who can get us up the pitch if he goes off. But yeah, he's looking exhausted. Cantwell's not only played 30 minutes so far, but with nobody with the creativity that he's got if he goes off. Or Hashi, you're dropping significantly to Gay, and I thought, Hashi, much as he wasn't really a goal threat, he was holding everything up, he was causing issues. I just looked at our bench at that point. I thought the only person who I could see who I thought had a decent game was Hedges. If he comes off and Dinev comes on, I'm not going to see much change. But all over the pitch, really, I thought, we've got an issue here because we need to change this up now around the 60 minutes, and we couldn't. We were just kind of forced to bumble along and hope it was okay. Whereas they were able to bring on not so much quality, but, I didn't see them bringing on somebody who changed the game, but they were bringing on, they had different options to mix it up, and they had different options to send somebody with more pace or somebody with a bit more quality or change the shape. We were kind of very much stuck, hoping we could see the game out, I felt.
Yeah, and their changes obviously worked because they ended up going on to win the game, and Dykes was one of the ones that came on. Like you say, Laird came on, put himself about and disrupted us. Ultimately, that's football. When players come on and they start trying to disrupt the play. Again, going back to the momentum chart on whoscored.com, you'll see it's all Rovers. And then there was like a spell where it was quite even, then it was Rovers again, and then it just falls off, and Blues come up at us, and the rest is history. Up until that time, though, some of the notes I made was Blues were wasteful, and we're getting tired. That was on the 60th minute. I wrote that.
Yeah,
I felt like Blues were just. I'm going to say McLoughlin and Hyam as a pairing have looked better.
Yeah,
and that pairing, and that goes back to what you were saying about having a left-footed centre-back, and you could just tell that McLoughlin and Hyam are creating. Whoever was at fault for certain goals, I don't mind. But for the majority of what I've seen them so far, in the very limited time that we've seen them, that looks like a pairing that could be a very solid centre-back pairing, because they dealt with everything coming into the box, and I was quite impressed. But Blues were getting wasteful. I thought Toth made some good saves. I mean, Hyam sent Stansfield for a hot dog, didn't he, at one point? And I was panicking, because when you've got Hyam that's not the fastest and Stansfield that's, this rapid little rat that's around his feet, and then he sent him, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. If we go on to win this, I'm going to be mentioning this, but yeah, it is what it is. But we had some great counters. Cargbo had his header at the back post. It was a great leap. It looked like he'd leapt too early, but he gets that one. It flashes across. But then Blue started to react well, and they came back into it. But what was interesting was we started to make some changes with how we played, and we stopped playing it out from the back, and we started getting rid. And when the goalkeeper had a goal kick, instead of us doing it where the centre-back played it to the goalkeeper to then pull a striker out, it started to be was just taking an old traditional get rid. And that was the moment where I was like, we're getting tired and we're getting concerned now. And instead of just sticking with the tactic that seems to be working, we're now just starting to just launch it. And Tronstad and Tavares, as for all the win in the world, aren't going to be winning the headers that they should be. And you only had Ohashi and Cantwell. So I wasn't too happy that we started to change it there. When did Hedges come off?
Hedges, 70th minute.
Yeah, so that's probably about when we started to just hoof it, really. Goalkeeper was going long, and then Hedges came on for Milan. We went to that back three, so we did change things tactically. And as much as we were starting to get opportunities still, I felt like we was just inviting them on us a little bit more.
But again, I don't necessarily, I mean, obviously I don't know, I'm not inside his brain, but I don't think Ismaël would have wanted to necessarily do that. I think he looked at it and thought, what's the lesser of many evils here? We need to make some changes. And we couldn't just do a like for like, could we? We've no Travis, and we haven't got his replacement through the door. So on the bench, we haven't got, I mean, where is John Buckley? What is going on with his career? But our options are to bring Montgomery on in midfield. Well, we saw he looked very raw midweek, and I think it was very telling he didn't bring him on, because he has done previously. And I think the comments going back to the Tuesday night game of, I've seen youngsters in a competitive game and it's told me a lot, is basically what he said. I think he thought, no, you're not ready now. So hopefully he's feeding that information back. Dinev, I thought potentially could have come on a bit earlier, but I think the problem was he wanted to keep those Cardboard, Campbell and Ohashi on, but knew they were exhausted. And Tavares and Tronstad, I mean, I thought Tronstad was really poor. We've spoken about him before without Travis. He looked out of sorts. He didn't look happy. Tavares was getting more and more wasteful as the more tired he got. And I think what we thought was, we don't want to be messing around in the middle of the park when we are looking exhausted and we're only going to get more so. So I think we thought, right, let's solidify it and let's keep our counter-attack options. And I think he did that because he had very, very little choice if you look at that bench.
Yeah, I mean, I was calling out for subs a bit earlier, and this is where I felt like we had the game under control.
Yeah.
And then we started to lose control when players were getting tired, and it seemed like time was getting on. We was getting tireder. They'd made their subs, which were quite, solid subs. They're solid players that are coming on, like you say. And if you don't change things at the right time, and this is going back to the Eustace days where he used to make very good subs at the right times, and that's why we didn't do it this time, because the triple sub comes around the 86th, 87th minute, I think. So we make a sub on the 82nd, two on the 87th, and one on the 88th. Now, obviously, one was because of injury, and then Morton comes on. So you've already lost Ali Biosu, that was having a good game and causing them a few issues. So they'd knocked him straight out of the game, which caused a problem. Then you've got Matt Targay coming on, who didn't really do much. Dinev could have come on and probably done that little bit more, but then you're losing two performers in Ohashi and Cantwell. I just felt like the subs maybe could have been that little bit earlier and spread out. I think when you're making that many changes, so you've done a few things there. One, you've gone to three at the back, so there's a tactical change where you're going to be inviting pressure. Then you've started to just kick the ball long to players that don't really like to win headers, so you've changed tactics there. Then later on in the game, you've done effectively a triple sub. Well, now you're really asking for three players to come on and get into the pace of a game where, Blues were in the game throughout it. I mean, they were only 1-0 down, and it wasn't, even though they were being wasteful, it was quite difficult for us to, keep on top of it when you're bringing on that many players to change it around. So I was getting a little bit frustrated. I mean, we did have chances. I think Hyam had one that flashed across goal. So we were getting chances, but in a way, and I don't want to call Ismaël out because I actually think Ismaël is doing the best he can with a bad situation at the moment. I felt like we brought it on ourselves a little bit. The penalty, I think, was given on the 88th. It ended up being scored on the 90th. I've looked at this a few times, and like I said at the top of the show, we want to be balanced when we talk about these things, and football is subjective. So there's some grey areas in there, and we could agree, disagree as fans on whether this is a penalty or not. Ultimately, you shouldn't be letting a player dribble that far in from that area against three players. We let him into the danger area. He was only going to do one thing, and I would fully expect any player, no matter whether he's wearing a Rovers shirt, not a Rovers shirt, I don't care, to do what he did, which was just knock it slightly past, get a touch. You, unless you're Ohashi at West Brom, you're going to get that penalty. He did. I've seen loads of people saying he dived. At the end of that, he looked for it. Of course he did. But you want your player to do that. He was going nowhere. We should have dealt with it earlier. For me, as hard as it is to say, it was a penalty. What was your views?
My initial thought was, he's chucked himself down, and he absolutely has chucked himself down. But I'm absolutely where you're at with it. It was there was contact. He's gone down in the box. He's manufactured it because he's got in a situation where he can get between two players, seen the leg, and he's going down. Well, I'm fine with it. I think it's where football's at. I would want Harry Leonard to do it or Hashi to do it. There was a touch there, and he's gone down. It's a penalty. Is it harsh? Is it whatever? Well, then you're debating about penalties in modern day football. It is a penalty because there was contact and he's gone down. I think you're right. I think Ismaël's comments after the game where he completely ignored whether it was a penalty or not and just said, well, we should have stopped it early, was right. I know what you're saying about him, but I had lots of sympathy with him because I think he's got one arm behind his back, hasn't he, looking at that bench? Who does he bring on? He can't just do like for like, so he doesn't really have that option. I think the only thing he potentially could have done was maybe put Miller at right back or at right wing and then Albiasu the other way around and kept the shape. I think the concern when you change shape to a three, when we look very comfortable as a centre-back pair, and I'm glad you've talked about them. I thought they were very, very good again. They're solid. They look good on the ball. They look good in the air. I'm really impressed with McLoughlin. Didn't know what to expect from him, and I think he's looking really good. And he's making Hyam look better as well, but Hyam's on the right, so he always does. I think the problem you've got there is they are very settled. They know who they're picking up. They know what they're doing. They know whose man's who. They kind of know what the players. I know they change their strikers, but they kind of know the set routine of the game and they're established. When you bring a third player into that mix, all of a sudden, who picks them up? Hyam, and then obviously we had the Albiasu went off and they had to move around even within that three. So Hyam was playing on the right, then he's playing in the centre, he's on the right. It changes the dynamic. All of a sudden, you've got some indecision. Do you pick him up? Do I pick him up now? And it's not as simple as just stick somebody there and they'll go and win every header. I think we saw that under Mowbray an awful lot, didn't we? Where he would go to 5 at the back and it would cost us. I was glad to see Wharton went to the centre of the three initially, though. But I don't blame him because I think if he could have had the options, had he had Travis on the bench, had he had another number 6, another number 8, not saying you can have a cardboard, but if you'd have had an attacking winger on the bench, you could have switched it up again. If you'd have had somebody who plays like Ohashi, you could have done that. If you'd have had somebody with quality like Cantwell, you could have done that. He didn't have any of them things on the bench. He's got Gay, who's a completely different beast to Ohashi. He's got Tyjon, not really done it in midweek, not shown that he's ready yet. You've got Montgomery, who's not looked like he's a centre midfielder ready yet. Henriksen's not really picking the pace of the game up yet. Dinev is a replacement for Hedges. He's not going to give you what Cardboard gives you. So then you're looking at, right, well, Miller, what's he going to give us? Well, he's going to give us a long throw threat. He's going to give us, well, we know what he's going to give us in terms of his energy levels, but he's also going to give you something potentially to strengthen us in the air, and they're going to bring Lyndon Dykes on. So I get the logic. I think minor detail, I would have put one of them to right back and one on the right wing and kept the shape the same. But I understand it because I think he didn't have many options. I think that bench was as poor as I've seen it in a long time, and I think that's what cost us the game. And I think that's why he didn't make the changes. Had he had the options, I think he would have done, but I was the same. I was looking at it at the 60th minute going, they're knackered. They need some changes. But if you take Cardboard off and you bring on Henriksen, we're going to be under the cosh anyway. If you bring Ohashi off and put Gay, I think that was the problem. It was kind of, well, I'd rather a 60% energy level Cardboard than Dinev swapping for him. I think you could swap Dinev for Hedges and you're fine. The rest, I think, were massive downgrades or a complete different change. And that's what cost us for me. And the penalty is a penalty. But what really impressed me was after that penalty, I thought, oh, here we go. There's 11 minutes. We are going to get absolutely bombarded. The 7,000, was it? You'll know exactly how many were there, Mike. I'm sure they've told us over and over. They're the first team to ever do that. They never used to bring 1,000, did they, every time they played us? But all of a sudden, actually, that didn't happen. There wasn't an onslaught. There wasn't backs to the wall. We got control of the game again. And that's what I saw that really impressed me. And if we're going to talk about Ismaël in terms of his play, there was a point in the first half where there was, I mean, it ended up being almost a drinks break, didn't it? But he got them over, talked about how they were playing, and I thought made a little subtle tweaks of how we were doing things, got us a little bit further up the pitch, and I thought that impacted the game positively. Half-time, I think he did the same thing again. I don't think he could really impact the game like he wanted to. I think it was kind of making the best of a bad situation at that point. But I thought the players stood, forget the end just for a second. I know it's very difficult, but the ball went in the net from a penalty. I expected an onslaught, and I think we got a grip of it. We controlled it. At that point, we started to slow it down. Absolutely, we did. At that point, we started to take time over long throws. But I thought right up until that last moment, we managed that game really, really well in the extra time. And I was really impressed with them up until,
Yeah, and there's so much to break down in this game. And if we'd gone on to win, we would obviously be thinking differently. We would be talking differently. And so much happened that changed. It's the butterfly effect. And I think a lot of the downfall started for me when we changed tactically. I would have I wouldn't have brought Miller on for Hedges. I probably would have gone like for like and had Dinev. I will get his name right. And I probably would have gone like for like because it seemed to be working. And I was quite happy with how things were going, and to actually give them something to think about. You know, if, like you said, when you've got a centre-back pairing that's working, to add another dynamic in there actually can cause issues. So it did seem to just put us off our game a little bit. The penalty goes in, and I agree with you. I thought we reacted well. I thought Blues probably had opportunities as well, even before their goal to come and counter. But Gay forced a great save from the keeper. It was probably a good height for the keeper, but he still had to make it. And that would have been a great goal for Gay. I think that would have set him off nicely and made him a hero again. It's a shame that didn't go in. But I just remember Clara just getting away with more and more. He was forcing. And it seemed like then my instinct was we was going to either win it or lose it, because that was the Rovers thing right now, and we was opened up at the back because we was just going for it. And I don't know whether we just got all a little bit excited that we we go up the other end and we start having opportunities, it's like, and they sat back as well. So they sat back straight after the goal. It wasn't like they came straight at us. I felt like they sat back a little bit and invited us. And I think we got a little bit excited and beyond ourselves. And whether that was by design, I don't know. But I do feel like we got a little bit overexcited trying to get the goal.
Yeah, I expected an onslaught. But for me, their manager making the change and bringing the centre half on, I know they'd thrown everybody. They'd kind of thrown the kitchen sink off the bench, hadn't they? But they made a change immediately and took the striker off, put the centre half on. And that signalled to their team, do you know what, if we only come away with a draw, we're happy with that. I think we calmed the game down and we did really well. But you're right. Then when we started getting long throws and the crowd were getting up a bit, the momentum, what I thought might happen to them and we might catch them on the counter or they would score, the momentum sort of shifted to us and we tried to take advantage of it, and we were naive, weren't we? Very naive. I think Ismaël after the game, he didn't call him out by name, but he said that the three people should have done better with the penalty. Tavares dangled a very, very tired, lazy leg. He shouldn't have been taking the corner. He said that out there. And then Tavares lets him just walk past him, doesn't he, to get the cross in for the goal. But I don't blame him. He was absolutely knackered. And I think the substitutions, you're right, changing shape didn't help the situation. But it was a strange sub because Hedges, I thought, was doing all right. I think when you've got Hedges, as long as you've got Cogboy, you're kind of all right with him. Thought he was doing all right. He didn't look that tired. Obviously, they know more than us. But the people that looked tired were the people that we can't really replace. So taking Hedges off, it should have been Denev. Absolutely. I just think possibly was it a bit of desperation to get that first win, get, over exuberance, naivety, tiredness, probably a combination. But yeah, we lost that game, didn't we? They didn't go and win it. And I thought they would go on and win it after they scored the penalty.
Yeah, there were some key moments in the game, which I'll get to in a second, but the goal goes in for them. There was some players being called out for their lack of energy getting back. But I think that just came down to the fact that Blues made the right subs at the right time and countered absolutely perfectly. But the one thing I will say, there was a picture going round of one defender versus like 6 Blues players on the halfway line as they were countering. But then you look at the next picture, which is everyone back in the box. To be fair to Rovers players, they absolutely busted a gut to get back.
They did.
And I'm going to say something now that a lot of people may agree with, may not. I would prefer us to probably finish the game going for it right now. And yeah. I'm going to say that you're right. Blues invited us on, and it was an absolute gut punch. And yes, I would of course prefer the draw. Well, I would have preferred the win, but I would have taken the draw when that penalty went in. But there was an opportunity there to go for it. And I think I would have been more upset if we just passed it around and just accepted the draw at that point. The fact that we went for it shows a little bit of desire. Mm-hmm. And it was unsuccessful. And if anything, it was an absolute killer. But in a way, I like the fact we went for it. Am I right? Am I wrong? What's your thoughts on this?
I agree. I think there were small details in there. So he's highlighted that Tavares shouldn't have been taking it and he should have been on the edge of the box and things like that. The delivery was awful. But I think the fact that we started putting the pressure on with Miller and Gade, that's what plan B is. And the fact that we were committing to it, given the fact that we've had the couple of weeks that we've had, the talk of dressing room unrest, talk of the club being absolute turmoil, it showed me that they have belief in what they're doing. Certainly the ones on the pitch. The ones who aren't on the pitch, I think, is a different story. But I was all right with it. I think we talk in the Championship all the time, don't we? Obviously, you're better to win one game than draw two, mathematically. But there are times we've had that as a club, haven't we, where we've sat back and you go for it, please. I think there's details there that they need to get right. I think we need more depth to be able to do it better. But I'm agree with you. The last thing you want to see when you think, do you know what, the game could be there for us, is people turning back, knocking it back to the centre half and playing it back along. I want them to go for a game. That's what football's about. sometimes it will go against you. And unfortunately for you, it's gone against you to probably the one team you don't want it to happen to. But I came away from that, like I'd said in my initial reaction, we've lost by a goal. And it was in the last minute. But I saw more positives in that game. I didn't see very many, if any, against West Brom. I did see some. And again, listening to Ismaël after the game, I thought he saw the same game as me. And he highlighted key points. I like the fact he didn't just blame the ref. He talked about details that we need to improve, control what we can control. And I'm all right with it. But there's a lot of work to be done. And some of it, I'm afraid, isn't for him to do. It's recruitment. And it worries me that we're still saying we're only going to bring one in, because for me, we are lacking at least 3, even with somebody not going out the door.
Well, I'll judge at the end of the window, because I don't know whether that. When I first heard that, I was thinking to myself, is this just them setting the expectation to the fans? And actually, they are going to be aiming for more. And I hope that's the case. And that's not me trying to be blindly positive. That's just me thinking there could be some mind games afoot. But the game finishes. Everyone's heartbroken. I'm heartbroken. I used to be a very angry person. I know that it's a shock to hear, but on the pitch, off the pitch, I used to be quite an angry person when it came to football. In my wise years, coming into my mid-40s, I started to relax a little bit more. But I'm not going to lie, I felt my phone in my hand was about to get absolutely pelted one. I had to walk away. I was absolutely heartbroken. And then when my phone started beeping away and the messages I was getting and some of the unsavoury things I was getting, I was like, the worst thing is, leading up to the 90th minute before the penalty, I was thinking to myself, how am I going to handle this? Because normally on my socials, because of all the people I know, I'll just share the results, like, just into my story, just a subtle little, we've won here. And I've done it for years. And it's not aimed at one person. It's just aimed at a group of people that I'm friends and family and so on. But then to get actually individual messages that were extremely personalised to me, I was just looked at my phone. I was like, right. So I was thinking about doing this nicely. So if this happens again, I've taken notes. I know who's said what.
Yeah,
I've seen some of the words used against me, and I'm like, if you want to have 100 people versus me, that's absolutely fine.
Let's go. Yeah.
But I turned up to football Sunday night. Loads of Blues fans there. I had my Blackburn vest top on. Bet 24 in the middle. It was an old one, and not one of them said anything to me, and no one wanted to talk about the game. They all quite quiet, and we played the game. I managed to bang a hat trick, but that's a side note. And it was very interesting what they were saying, being the keyboard warriors, to what they wanted to talk about face to face was quite interesting. But by the by, I came away and I was extremely angry. I was extremely negative. But now I've looked back. Now I'm looking at certain things. I'm not sure I can blame the ref too much. There's a lot of comments about the better team lost. What was it? EFL refs are a complete shambles. Ref didn't help. It's going to be a long season. Someone's saying it's our bogey side. Oh no, that's a Birmingham fan coming in. A bogey side will take it. And it's quite interesting now looking at some of the reactions blaming the ref. And there was a picture them going round of the ref being hugged by a player on the pitch. I don't think I can blame the ref too much. I felt like we gave a lot of niggly fouls. I think their fouls may have been less but worse. Whilst if we tripped someone up, they would full on batter them in the ribs kind of thing. But I don't think the ref had a particularly bad game. I think the penalty, I understand why it was given. I don't see anything wrong with the counter-attack for the goal. There's not much I look back at and I point at the ref and say, you cost us that game. Are you on the same level?
I think for me, what cost us the game was our lack of depth. And when I say that, I mean the quality on the bench. Yes, there's people there, but you can fill the bench up with who you want. We needed to have a replacement for Tavares. ready to go in the 60th minute. We needed a replacement for Cantwell to go, and we needed somebody, not an exact replica of Carbo, because you're not going to get that, but we needed an attacking winger ready to go. And that's at least. I also think potentially a like for Ohashi, but I understand plan B and bringing Miller and that thing. So I think we were 3 players short, and that's what cost us the game. The referee, there was no real decisions that impacted the game that I thought were massively wrong. The penalty we've spoken about, it was what it was. It was what it was. The 11 minutes added time is probably about right. Maybe a little bit too much, but probably about right. There was lots of subs. There was goals. There was an injury. I didn't blame the ref at all. I looked at it and blamed our bench. I didn't blame Ismaël. I know what people are saying about the subs, but I thought he tried something, and if he'd have brought like for like on it, it'd have gone wrong. It could have done. I blame solely is one place, and that's we didn't have enough quality and depth on the bench. What I would say about Birmingham, Mark, obviously you will know about them more than me. It's the first time I properly saw them. I think they've got a lot more to do if they think they're going to be going up. What surprises me about their fans is they know the Championship. They've been in there a long time. And the fact they think they're going to walk it, when I think if you look at Southampton's front line, you look at Sheffield United potentially, look at Leicester's even, certainly Ipswich, I don't think too many of Birmingham's players are getting in those teams. They haven't got an Adam Armstrong, they haven't got a Smodix, for example. I don't see anybody that's going to go and get them. Maybe Kyogo will, but I don't think they are as good as they think they are, and the fact they think they're going to walk the league really surprises me. That's what's really surprised me. I've been winding them up. I didn't have no real interest whether they go up or they don't. But the fact they think they are so confident surprised me. So when I watched them, I thought, let's have a look. I think they're lacking a bit of quality too. I expected them to be able to make changes and impact the game and go and win the game with quality. I didn't see that. I thought they have more depth than us, but I didn't see. Lyndon Dykes is a plan B, isn't he? He's not. They've not brought somebody on who's going to massively change the game. Tommy Doyle came on, didn't make much difference. Maybe they've not had much pre-season, I don't know. But for me, if they think they're going to walk the league, I think they may well be mistaken. They may well go up. They've got momentum. They made decent signings. They're a solid team, and they've got options. But I didn't think they look like a team that's going to absolutely rip through the league. But then again, look what Sunderland are doing. And when we last played them late on last season, mate, they were as average a team as you could get, weren't they? So we will see. But for me, it was a lack of depth and quality that cost us that game, nothing else.
Yeah, and there's a fine line between being a genius and being a lunatic with what Ismaël did at the end, going for it. If we go and win that 2-1, and so let's say Gay's header goes in, and he's hailed a hero, Ismaël's a genius, and so on. That's the fine lines of football. That doesn't go in. They go up the other end. They get their goal. And there was calls apparently for a handball when we've gone long, I think, for a penalty. I'll be honest, I was writing some notes at the time. But for me,
it wasn't.
It's the fine lines of football. You win some, you lose some. As much as from a personal level, this one meant a lot to me. I think that there was enough glimpses again for us to be positive about with some individuals. I'm liking this 4-2-3-1 formation that we've been playing for the last few years now. I like the fact we're sticking with it. Toth, I thought, was solid again with that centre-back pairing. I thought defensively we looked quite solid. We was dealing with balls into the box better than what we did against West Brom. As much as I can't stand long throws, the fact that we've got that weapon is quite nice. The standout performer for me was, I think, the same as everyone else, and that was Cantwell, closely followed with people on that right-hand side with Alabiosu and Carabao. If you look at the heat map, it showed that we was aiming everything down that right-hand side. And I think there is potential there. But we're now going to go into a very big game against Hull City. It's a midday kickoff, half past 12. I went posh then, saying 12:30 on Saturday. How important a game is this for our season?
I don't think we have got the finished article in terms of our squad. So I think from that sense, we can still sit here next week and say we've still work to do in the transfer market. The problem you've got is, whilst it is only the start, very, very quickly, which is what we touched on a couple of weeks ago, it becomes you're bottom of the league. You've not really scored. You're losing. And then how much do people like Tavares, people start getting on the back? Dinev isn't somebody who's going to take him on, so he cuts inside and plays the ball back at the groans in the stadium. Then it becomes a lot harder, doesn't it? I think we are looking more solid than I expected as a back 4 or 5, if you include Toth. I think Alabiosu impressed me because people have said he can't play as a fullback, and he did play as a fullback, and he impressed me. I think Cardball looked better than I've seen him when he starts. I thought Cantwell looked bang at it. I'm worried about Tronstad and Tavares. I think that we need some help in there quickly. And we're not creating enough for Ohashi. So there's a lot of work to do. I would like to see us grind out a result, though. I think they need that. I think they will soon lose faith in what they're doing. And our worry going into the season was that we're not going to create enough. And right now, that looks like it's going to play out, doesn't it?
Yeah, and as much as I liked Ismaël going for the win at the end, that second game thing of first league game at home, I'm willing to do it. Now you've got 3 losses on the season, 2 in the league. Now we're at a point where actually I just want a point on the board at minimum. I want something. It's quite interesting because obviously Hull have gone and got a couple of results with theirs, with the Oxford win and the draw at Coventry. And the draw at Coventry is a great result. I think they lost to Wrexham in the Cup. I can't remember, but they've got 4 points at the moment. So they've had a decent start. You'd take a win and a draw, unbeaten start in the league. What's interesting, though, is it looks at their... looking at the scouting website, you look at their strengths and it says creating chances using through balls, creating chances through individual skill. I do feel like that's something that we could actually potentially stop with our new way of playing defensive. You look at Blackburn's and it says team has no significant strengths. And it's the first time I've ever seen that. And I've used this website for years, and it's the first time I've ever seen that. So is that saying that we don't have a very strong squad right now? Potentially. But interestingly, it says our style is that opponents play aggressively against us. So apparently we're meant to be bully boys, but yet that's what's... and that we're non-aggressive, it says here. Very interesting. I just want to see a bit of fight now. The backs are against the wall. I'm not necessarily saying it's going to define our season. We've plenty of times we've had slow starts to the season and we've ended up finishing strong. We've seen enough glimpses on some of these individual players to show that they can break out and actually get some opportunities. This new fast-paced, strong side that we've got, I think can help. Me personally, I've said previously, I just want to see some good performances and glimpses. Now I just want to see a result. And whether it's a draw or a win, I just want to see a result. Main thing is, I think it will help the confidence going forward. I do want to see some positive glimpses from our new players. I do want to see this new way of playing, of us being true to our formation and so on. But it's important now that we get something for the confidence, because we have got a run of games which are going to be difficult. You know, we've got Norwich at home. I want us to just get something. If we don't, the murmurings are going to start getting louder and louder. You go back to a home game against Norwich where the fans are still angry. Norwich aren't an easy side to play. It's a difficult time. It's a difficult time, especially with this Travis situation over our heads. I mean, that should be done by then, hopefully, just so then we can put a line under it. But I think it's going to be it's going to be a difficult game, and I just want us to get something out of it.
Yeah, I think we absolutely need. I don't think we can completely disregard the performance, but we do definitely need a result. That's the most important. I think what I'm just starting to get a little bit worried about is our lack of creativity in goals. Is then if you start bumbling along in the league and you're not scoring very many, you go 1-0 down, then the players start to think, we're not going to come back into this, and then they don't have the belief. I'd like to see us get a couple of goals, obviously, but I think that could be, even if it's set piece, it doesn't really matter, but I would like to see us come away from this, even if it was a 2-2 draw. I'd rather that than a 0-0. I think we need actually to see some that we can create and score, whatever means that is, whether it's Miller and we go, that's our route to it, fine. But you're absolutely right. We need to get that Travis situation sorted now, because you can't have unity in a squad, whatever we feel about it, when your captain is, whether he wants to go, whether he doesn't want to go, whether they want him out, whatever the reasons, that is not going to be doing anybody any good whatsoever. And it needs sorting. It needs sorting quickly.
Well, what's interesting with this Travis situation, I did put a poll out saying, with Lewis Travis on his way out the club, will he be missed on the pitch? And 74% of people said yes. And there was quite a lot of comments about how we do need that leader on the pitch. Yeah. I think as a footballer, I should have probably worded it as a footballer, because that's kind of what I was getting at. But his leadership would have really helped. To go back to the Blues game and the Bradford game, if he was on the pitch, do you think we would have had different results in those two games?
Bradford, maybe not. It's difficult, isn't it? Because I saw him at West Brom and he wasn't the big leader that he has been before. Lewis Travis needs to, he's not the most technically gifted footballer in the world. He's all about playing at 100% and fight and endeavour and backs against the wall and all those kind of things. And he didn't have that against West Brom. Has he? If he'd have had that, had we got the West Brom last year version of Lewis Travis, I think we would have held out against Birmingham. Yes.
Yeah, I think it would have made a difference. If it was Travis and Tronstad in that midfield, I think it would have made a difference. And that's hindsight's 2020. Tavares, the game went past him a little bit. I think he showed a few glimpses. But I want to stop using the word glimpses. I need solid things now. I need it to be the performance is this and what we can expect. And I think that's what we did miss with Travis not being on the pitch. I think he would have probably taken hold of the game a little bit earlier. And whether those final two goals hadn't gone in, you don't know. And the game could have been completely different with him being on that pitch. But to recklessly speculate, I do think the result would have been different. And as much as I think that Travis as a footballer is replaceable, his leadership, I think, would have really helped that situation. But it leads into now, the other poll I put out was, as Rovers fans, how are you feeling? And it was either very positive, negative, or very negative. And it was quite close between positive and negative, to be honest. If I could put in a fifth one, I would have done, right in the middle. But it looks like that's kind of where people are at. There was only 1% that were very positive, and there was 29% that were very negative. But generally, it's between positive and negative. Negative did win out with 36%. Where are you at right now? Me personally, my initial thoughts with this poll was I was very negative, but I think that was just the emotional side of when you lose a game, whether it's to a team you want to beat or any team. If you're going to lose, if you're going to be 1-0 up in the 90th minute and lose the game, you're going to feel very negative. And that's how I felt right then. But for me, I'm slightly below medium.
I am, I think right now we were 3 players short, 3 players that could play, that could have started or come on Saturday, and that's a concern. I think without them, I'm very concerned. Let's say that we get a midfielder and a right winger through the door. I think we're too deep into the transition and we're making too many changes, albeit forced, whatever, that I can't see us having a good season. I think 14th is, if we stay clear of a relegation fight and we can see players bedding in and the way that we're going forward, I'll be all right with that. I think we're teetering on the edge, though, of being in a relegation fight because we're not scoring enough goals, we're not creating enough, and that's a worry. I think we'll be solid enough. I think we will be robust. I think we'll fight. But if you don't score goals, you don't win games, and that's where we're at the moment for me. So if we get 2 or 3 through the door, I think I can see where the transition's going. By no means do I mean now. I don't even think we'll finish in the top half. I think we'll be 14th. But I think that would be the best case scenario right now. Without those signings, I worry. I don't agree with those people who think it's an Owen Coyle situation, because I had zero faith in Owen Coyle. Ironically, I think Ismaël's actually he's doing all right. I think he's got players buy-in. I think he's got some tactical nous. I'm all right with what he's doing. I just think we're losing too many established Premier League, that'd be the dream, Championship players and at once. And it's a big changeover that you wouldn't have done. But I've heard his interviews and he didn't want to do it right now like this either. So I think you go into it. And if we are going to lose Lewis Travis, potentially Tronstad, and we get a fee for them, if that needs to be, that needs to be. But you've got to get some quality through the door. And what worries me is our track record, as we spoke about before. We don't do that, do we? We don't go and invest. We get 3.5 million for Britain, 1 million for Rankin Costello, and we spent 1.5 million, 2 million on Miller and Alabiosu. If that model carries forward, I'm all right with it. I'm all right with us getting, but I think we need to go and get a replacement for Travis that's more of McLoughlin style than Baradji, who's been linked. Maybe he's going to be the future, but we've got too many players who are showing us glimpses, and I think we'll do that for a while. Henriksen's going to show us glimpses this season. Is he going to be established next month? Probably not. He's going to be 6 months next season, and I think they bought them to be that, and we're asking them to do it right now, and that's my worry. So I think we've got to go and get a McLoughlin style replacement for Travis that we can hang our hat on now to do a job. I think Forshaw could potentially do that a little bit, but not every game and not starting. I think we're missing somebody to give us creativity. So if that's going to be Mayoshi, whoever it's going to be, go and get them in now, because the season, it's a long season, but if you go start the season with 4 defeats, it's an uphill battle, isn't it? So yeah, I'm a long-winded answer to yours, Mike, but I'm right now I'm concerned, I would say.
And I think I'm going to put this poll out every Monday just to kind of gauge where people are at after results, because it is an emotional thing, football. This is our team, and as much as fans are all arguing with each other when they all have these opinions, whether someone's overly positive, overly negative, whatever, there's some people on social media that are ridiculously one way or the other. And that's their right. They can do that. We try to be straight down the middle. We try to find the positives where we can. We're not completely blinkered head in the sand. We don't like talking about the business stuff as much because we just want to talk about the football, which is why we're so happy that the season started. And football can kick you in the nuts sometimes, and that's what it's done this week. But next week can be dramatically different. And in 2 weeks' time, the window's going to close. We're going to evaluate the start of the season. We're going to evaluate the signings, the incomings, the outgoings, whether we feel like we're stronger or not, who's shown enough to be a first-team player, who's shown enough to be potential for the future, and who's potentially someone that we just think needs to be on their way out and they're not good enough. There's loads that's going to happen. We've got potential signings, potential outgoings. We haven't even discussed the loan market, and we always dip into the loan market. That's the championship way of working. So we've got that coming as well.
But Ismaël spoke, didn't they, the other day, and so basically said no. The only way that they would do it is if they couldn't get a deal done. So like when we signed Brereton, they couldn't get the deal done in time, then it would be that with a view to permanent. They don't want to dip into it at all, and I think that's a massive error. It's all right growing your own players, but you've got to have people good enough now. We've seen with Causey Dewberry, he wasn't, and that I don't blame them for not bringing people like that in. But we also saw with Harvey Elliott that you bring that little bit of quality and it makes a massive difference. I think we're missing, if we're going to lose so much championship experience, we've got to replace it. And I think we're missing like a Bradley Johnson if Travis scores, just somebody just to calm things down now and again. I think we're asking too much too quickly of people who are not familiar with the league. And yeah, that's where I'm at the minute.
And hopefully next week we're going to be talking more positively. The poll's going to go out, and we're going to start seeing more votes higher up in that vote. I think for now there's a lot in the fan base that is trying to find something to look forward to, and it's difficult right now. We've had a gut punch of a finish to a game. We've had a couple of games before that where people weren't seeing what they wanted to see. We haven't seen these massively exciting signings that we was meant to be seeing. So our captain's meant to be leaving, and just the symbol of that, I think, is causing a lot of negativity. So I hope that when you've finished tanning yourself and you're back in sunny Blackburn, and we can have a conversation a little bit more positively, that we've had some signings, the Travis situation's been sorted, however way that's been sorted, and that we've got a result against Hull, and we can all be excited again.
That would be extremely nice. It would. I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I think there are potential in what we've signed. I think there's a potential in the way that we're looking to play. I think it's possibly more, ironically, the way that we're trying to play in the Championship is possibly more suited to getting results in the Championship. And I think I can see where we're going with it. I just think we need to move it along a little quicker. But if you want to look at it a completely different way, we've just taken a team tipped for promotion to the 90th minute and didn't look in any danger at that point. So, and we're still short. So there's different ways of looking at football, isn't there? But it's emotional. I think we need to get the Travis situation. By the time we speak again next week, the Travis situation needs to be done. We need a couple of points, a point on the board, and a couple of goals would be nice, and a couple of signings through the door. I'd be a happy bunny this time next week if that happens. Some of it might not. But if none of it's happened, then I'm going to be a very concerned boy.
And we'll talk about it then. But Mark, until then, you go get back in that air conditioning. You cool yourself off.
Yeah.
And enjoy the rest of your holiday.
I will do, bud. I will. Thank you very much. And it's all good fun being a Rovers fan, isn't it? And don't forget, 12:30 on Saturday. Don't be caught out by it.
Exactly. Well, the dedication Mark showed in joining us this week on holiday is very much appreciated, Mark, and everyone listening. We do appreciate all your support. Keep liking, subscribing, sharing, doing all the good stuff. And I promise next week we'll have something positive to talk about. So until then, have a great week.